It's my privilege to introduce Rajat Mitra, the author of the book Infidel Next Door.
Hi.
Rajat, you're a psychologist. So, what made you turn to writing fiction?
Even though I'm a clinical psychologist by education, but most of my professional career has been in prisons, in working with terrorists, with perpetrators of mass violence, and also survivors of persecution, refugees, and others who have suffered heinous crimes. Often, when they have brought out their stories to me, their narratives are full of deep, subtle nuances that cannot be captured in a clinical way, in a clinical writing. So, therefore, I turn to fiction to depict their stories so that the world comes to know about what goes on in the psyche of those people in those moments which are the worst moments of their lives, or for people who commit the worst crimes. That was my goal in writing through fiction.
What is the emergent nationalism that you see? Would you call it psychological?
Yes, I would definitely call it psychological because many times while listening to people who have suffered mass violence or to the perpetrators of mass violence, there are often many feelings, particularly of grief, particularly of other complex emotions that emerge. And it is important for those who want to understand the present rise of nationalism in India and elsewhere in the world to understand those feelings. And my book is an attempt in that direction for people to understand that.
What is the genre of the book?
The genre of the book is literary fiction.
Can you describe your book in one paragraph?
Yes, I would try to. My book is about a young man who sees his race, who sees his community facing a possible genocide, and he goes back in the midst of them to protect them from what is coming, and his tribulations and trials as he goes through that. And another young man who faces indoctrination and who challenges him, and thereby revealing a deep conflict between them. And from there, if we go forward, if we go further, we also see that it tries to answer one of the basic questions that is facing most of the world right now, is that can the followers of Islam and the followers of Hinduism, or for that matter, the followers of any other religion, coexist and live together? So that is what my book tries to answer through the different conflicts, the philosophical doubts that they go through, and the sufferings that they face while trying to understand that and themselves.
What led you to conceive the idea behind the book?
I can think of three distinct events that led me to conceive the idea of the book. One was when we were coming out of a camp for Kashmiri Pandits. There was this man who came over and he asked me in quite a sarcastic way, "You are a psychologist. Do you really understand the trauma of our people?" So when I asked him what he meant, he pointed his finger at the camp and said, "Do you understand that this was Aurangzeb's dream? That what we are living right now?" It bothered me. I did not understand what he meant. He was a school teacher, as I recall. When I went back on that day and searched for Aurangzeb and what he had done, I discovered the history of an emperor who wanted to convert India to Islam, to Islamic State, and he thought that he could achieve that through converting all Kashmiri Pandits first, and he wanted to throw them out of Kashmir. That is how this man was making a connection, and that told me what a deep connection there is between history and the present suffering or trauma of people. The second was about a stone pelter whom I interacted with in Tihar prisons, and he told me about how He became a stone pelter, how he believed that Kashmir should be Islamic, and how he believed that, it is something that he would achieve that. The third incident was when one day I accidentally saw that near my home there is a temple and a mosque existing side by side, and people coming out of it together at the same time and even greeting each other. So that made me feel that if these two structures for God can exist next to each other and live in harmony, why not the rest of the world? That's what affected me, and I decided to write it.
Can you share a surprise discovery while writing a book?
There were many surprise discoveries, but one surprise discovery that I had while writing the book was that how much of our psyche is historical. There is so much of history that is at the root of our psyche, and also that our memory of the past, how deeply it governs our present day actions, the actions of a society, the actions that we do collectively in order to feel who we are. That was the biggest surprise discovery that I never had before.
What can readers discover while reading your book?
Readers can discover many things while reading the book. The book has many themes which are topical and will be of interest to readers. But I think one thing that readers probably would discover is that how much the trauma of Kashmir in the present times is transgenerational. It goes back to centuries and is rooted as memory in the minds of people.
Who were the historical figures who inspired you?
There were three figures, I think, who affected me deeply, and one was Guru Tegh Bahadur and his story of martyrdom. What amazed me was that there is no other story like that in the entire history of religion, where the prophet of one religion gave his life, sacrificed it to preserve another religion, and how deeply it is rooted in the minds of present day Kashmiris and Sikhs, and it is one of the least dis- one of the most forgotten chapters of Indian history. The second was about Mahatma Gandhi and his story of Satyagraha. What Gandhi talked about facing your adversary with courage even when death is certain. And that is something that affected me deeply, more than his saying that non-violence is the highest virtue. The third person who influenced me deeply was Kabir, and what he wrote, his personality himself actually, of what he stands for, of interfaith healing and reconciliation. His poems were most sublime and spiritual, that helped me to see that how you can connect the two religions together.
For whom is the book meant for?
The book is meant for all those who believe in interfaith healing and reconciliation. The book is meant for all those people who want to understand the present roots of fanaticism and bigotry and intolerance in the world, and why it is emerging uh, in the youth in such epidemic proportions.
Was writing this book a personal journey?
Yes, writing this book has been a deeply personal journey for me. I have, as a psychologist, I was quite, I would say, empirical. But this process of writing the book has somewhere made me more spiritual, has understand the spiritual dimension of healing and forgiveness. Many of the chapters where I explored the spiritual experiences of the characters. In fact, while writing that, I would feel a strong sense of spiritual presence within me, around me, as I was writing that. Some of the best chapters I wrote in a monastery where I had gone to do a course, and the spiritual environment helped me to conceive of that. Some of the chapters I wrote in one of the most troubled spots in the world, and as I listened to the story of the survivors, what they had gone through and how they had come out, it made me write the whole thing from a spiritual perspective that I could not have done in any other way.
How long did it take you to write this book?
I don't remember when I wrote the first sentence and when I wrote the last sentence, but in between 4 years had passed.
What is that one thing that you would like readers to take from the book?
The one thing that I would like the readers to take from the book is to feel for those who have gone through religious persecution in this world, and to understand that how deep and widespread religious persecution is. And if we can raise our voice against that as a result of that, my purpose in writing this book would be met, would be fulfilled.
Thank you, Rajat, for sharing your experiences of writing this book. And I hope that many people will find these ideas interesting and inspiring to read the book. Thank you.
Thank you.